There's a particular kind of silence that follows a certain kind of person through life. They are in the room. They are part of the conversation. They are nodding at the right moments. But there's a second conversation running, in parallel, that they are having entirely with themselves. A conversation full of things they have learned, slowly and over many years, to never say out loud. It's not that they're hiding anything sinister. It's that they figured out, somewhere around their early 20s, that certain thoughts, when spoken, cost more than they're worth. So those thoughts went underground. They became internal. And the longer they stayed there, the more isolating life quietly became. What follows are some of those thoughts. Not as a celebration of being smart. There's nothing especially admirable about thinking these things, only as an honest map of what tends to be sitting under the surface of someone with a sharp, restless, observant mind. And, maybe more importantly, what it costs them to carry it alone. The first one is about most conversations. They have, very quietly, given up on a lot of them. Not in a dramatic way, they still show up. They still ask how your weekend was. But somewhere along the way, they notice that most conversations aren't really for exchanging ideas. They're for confirming bonds, marking territory, reassuring each other that nothing has changed. And the moment they bring up something genuinely interesting to them, something they've actually been thinking about, the room shifts, just slightly. Eyes glaze, someone changes the subject. They learn, after enough small versions of this, that the price of saying the real thing is making everyone else uncomfortable. So they stop. They keep the surface chat going and keep the actual thinking for themselves. And one of the quiet griefs of being this kind of person is realizing how few people in your life have ever actually met the inside of your head. The second thought is about being right. They almost never say it out loud, even when they are, because they learned early that being right is socially expensive. Most people, when corrected, don't experience it as new information. They experience it as an attack on their standing in the room. So a smart person who points out accurately that someone is wrong is rarely thanked. They are remembered as the difficult one, the arrogant one, the one who had to make a point of it. After enough of these moments, they make a calculation almost everyone in this position eventually makes. It's better to let the wrong thing stand than to spend social capital fixing it. So they sit through meetings, dinners, family arguments, watching confidently incorrect things be said. And they say nothing. They are not being cowardly. They are being efficient. But the cost over years is a low background loneliness, the feeling of being constantly the only person in a room who knows a thing and choosing every time not to be that person out loud. The third one is harder to admit. They sometimes feel a quiet impatience with people they love. This is the thought they hate the most, because it makes them feel like the kind of person they don't want to be. But it's there. The conversation that loops back to the same complaint for the fifth time. The friend making the same self-destructive choice for the third year. The family member who refuses, year after year, to look at the obvious thing. A high-functioning mind can see patterns very clearly, including patterns of self-sabotage in the people around them. And it is genuinely painful to watch someone you love walk in the same circle while being totally unable to point it out without sounding cruel. So they bite it down. They nod, they listen again, and they feel guilty for the impatience because they know, they really do know, that seeing a pattern is not the same as being free of one, and that the people they're impatient with are doing their best inside lives the smart person has not actually had to live. The fourth thought is about themselves, and it's the saddest one. They suspect, often, that their intelligence has not made their life better. This is rarely said because it sounds ungrateful. They are aware that intelligence is, on paper, a gift. They know they got lucky in a certain narrow way. But quietly, in the parts of life that actually matter, close relationships, contentment, the ability to enjoy an ordinary Tuesday without analyzing it to death, they often suspect that the very thing they're praised for has, in private, gotten in the way. They overthink the people they love. They can't switch off in moments most people seem to settle into easily. They see the threads in everything, including the threads that would have been kinder to leave unseen. A lot of high IQ adults carry a strange, half-guilty observation. The people they envy are almost never the smarter ones. They're the ones who seem able to simply be in their own life, without standing slightly outside of it and narrating it. And the smart person, who can see this clearly, is the one person who cannot easily get there. The fifth one is the one they tell almost no one. They are often very quietly lonely in a specific way that has nothing to do with how many people are around them. It is the loneliness of having an inner life that doesn't quite match anyone else's inner life in the room. Not because they're better, and they know they're not, but because the texture of how they think is unusual enough that even close relationships often only reach the first few floors of it. There are whole rooms inside them that nobody has ever been in. And as they get older, they start to suspect that those rooms will mostly stay empty. They've made peace with it, mostly. But every so often, late at night, they feel the specific ache of all the things they've thought over a lifetime that no one ever heard them think, and of how strange it is to spend a whole life inside a mind whose interior is, in some essential way, a place you visit alone. These are not impressive thoughts. They are not the secret advantages of a superior brain. They are mostly the costs of one, the quiet, accumulated tax of seeing more than is socially convenient and learning, over years, to say less than you see. And maybe the most useful thing to know about a person like this isn't what's in those unspoken thoughts. It's that they're in there at all. That under the calm, capable, slightly too quiet surface of someone who seems to be tracking everything in the room, there is usually a person carrying a lot of small, never aired observations, and waiting, mostly without hope, for one other person to turn to them in some unguarded moment and ask them what they actually think. Most never get asked, but the ones who do, who finally meet someone who wants the inside conversation, not just the surface one, almost always describe it the same way. It felt, they say, like finally being allowed to use my whole mind in front of another person. That is what they've been waiting for, all along.